Well, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to all those who follow us in this webinar dedicated to the topic Social and Solidarity Economy in Local Public Policies for Inclusive and Sustainable Recovery Processes. I'm Gianluca Salvatori, Secretary General of IRICSI, a research center based in Italy, working on social economy. And this is the third World LED Forum in which I participate. But this time, the context in which this meeting takes place is really different than the past. We are recovering from one of the most serious emergencies in decades, an emergency that has affected almost all the countries of the world at the same time. An emergency that, starting from the coronavirus pandemic, has caused a wide range of economic and social consequences. One of the few truly global emergencies that we have experienced in our lifetime, of which we have all been equally aware. The macroscopic effects have been a prolonged shutdown of some economic sectors, the destruction of jobs, especially in some less guaranteed areas of informal work or self-employment, and exceptional areas pressure on health systems, and the spread of a sense of social precariousness, a request for help addressed to the public sector to take charge of relaunch and compensation actions, and so on. Our task today in this webinar is to place the social economy within the framework created by the pandemic. Our webinar needs to address the role of social and solidarity economy in the recovery, the role that the social economy can play in recovery. In our meetings in the past, every time we repeated that the social economy has great virtues. Social and solidarity economy practices are capable of dynamizing local economies, capable of allowing more equitable access to employment and to income opportunities. We say that they contribute to reduce inequalities, to strengthen social cohesion, to promote markets based on proximity, to enhance the localization of the Sustainable Development Goals. In particular, we're aware that the social and solidarity economy establishes a link between local economic development, the satisfaction of social needs, and the improvement in the quality of life of people within the environment they live in. But the question today is, how does the pandemic strengthen or rather weaken these characteristics of the social and solidarity economy? It is indeed true that some typical elements of the social economy emerge stronger from this crisis, such as shorter production chains with the relocalization of part of the processes that had been offshored in the past, or proximity-based distributions, channels, and provision of social and environmental services, or again, a greater attention paid to the issues of caring for people in a community, and so on. But on the other hand, this period marked by COVID-19 has highlighted two new trends. The first one is the need to face the emergency with national level tools and strategies. This trend has somehow compressed the space of action for local communities. In fact, for vaccination campaigns or for economic contributions to businesses, it was fundamental, the role of central power. And so we have an issue here in terms of relationship between central power and local communities. A second trend is that the economic recovery has seen a return of the state, of the public authority. In the US, in Europe, in some other countries, central governments have poured out huge amounts of money to revive the economy. After decades of preaching that the state should deflate, should shrink, should keep away from the economy, today its action is now being demanded in a way it hasn't been for decades. In this framework, post-COVID public policies, in what consideration can take the contribution of private subjects, such as those of social and solidarity economy? Isn't there a risk that a new public interventionism will prevail against the space of activity of social economy? We want to talk about these issues with an authoritative panel of experts, people who come both from the world of academia and from the world of economic organizations. A truly international panel with participants from all over the world that I want to introduce you. We have today from Italy, Claudia Fiaschi. Claudia is the spokesperson of the National Forum of the Third Sector and holds various representative roles at national level. But she comes from a long and rich experience in the cooperative sector, both at national and local level in her region, Tuscany. Then we have Eri Trinurini from Indonesia. Eri has a career as a consultant and as a social activist, acting mostly with the issues of community empowerment and participatory development and governance. She is currently board member of the Bina Swadaya Foundation, one of the largest Indonesian associations focusing on socioeconomic development of rural communities. Roberto Escalante Semerena from Mexico, I hope he joined us, has been a university professor committed to sustainable development issues, and he's a member of the Mexican Academy of Sciences, currently serving as Secretary General of the Union of the Universities of Latin American and Caribbean. Then we have Luis Miguel Jurado Mancilla from Spain. Luis has been involved in social movements since a long time. Starting from 2008, is committed in FAECTA, the Andalusian Federation of Worker Cooperative Enterprises, and he is currently also president of the Spanish Confederation of Worker Cooperatives, COSETA. Isabelle Gilbert from Quebec. Isabelle has worked for more than 20 years now in the field of social and economic development. She also has an extensive experience in the public and political spheres, having served as press attaché and advisor to many different ministers. Isabelle is now General Director of CDEC, the Coopération de Développement Économique Communautaire, and she's in the board of the Chantier de l'Économie Sociale in Quebec. Finally, Miguel Fabian Ejarque from Argentina is director of the San Juan Investment Development Agency of the government of the province of San Juan. It had also a role in several UNDP projects related to the development of the province. So it brings the voice in this panel of the policymaker who knows the point of view of a local government. So those are our panelists. In the next hour and a half, we will have 2 rounds of speeches. in response to 2 questions, one more related to the general scenario and one more focused on the specific experience of each panelist. Each panelist has a maximum of 5 minutes for each answer, and considering the time available, the public will be able to use the chat to ask questions. So we will have some minutes left in order to answer to your question. So let's start with the first question concerning the post-COVID scenario. Coronavirus emergency has brought national and public authorities back to the center stage. After a long period of constant retreat, the state proposes itself again as a key player in the recovery policies. However, during the emergency, the role of social economy was also very important, fundamental in addressing new social needs. How do you think the relationship between civil society organization and the public sector that is once again protagonist will evolve in the coming years? Are the spaces of the social economy destined to grow or shrink? Should public policies in support to local economies evolve in order to be more conducive and enhance the potential of social solidarity economy? And what and how this could happen? So let's start with the first round, and the floor is to Claudia. Please, Claudia.
Bonjour à tous, merci pour l'invitation. Excusez mon français.
Excuse for my French. According to the data, after COVID, the data provided by the Italian Institute, in the last 10 years, the social economy is the only sector that had shown some growth. As regards organization and as regards as workers, it not only showed an economic and social development, it also showed a key role in the inequality reduction of people, general interest activities, and the reduction of inequalities of the different sectors. The most fragile territories had economic with better results, an economy with better results. Different Italian sectors had problems, but in this emergency situation, we had a model, and it showed that without the different sectors, Italian sectors network, some part of the pandemic was very devastating, especially for fragile people. They were weakened even more. The pandemics also put into place that the development plan, in the social plan, and also in the environmental aspect, cannot be left out any longer. This development model can be developed in order to reduce and diminish this model of the SSE. The economy is at the service for the citizens, and it aims at equality and the social cohesion, as well as investment, digitalization, citizen training. And in the global development, we know that this growth is going to be even bigger if the institution capacity grows. The public sector is not a competitor, and they don't take care of the well-being of people. It is fundamental to put this situation in the central place. The administrative sector has to take many measures. Our Italian characteristic is that the emergency made more evident the capacity to construct allies with the public sector, the private sector, private companies, and public companies in order to achieve a cohesion and a transformation in the population. When many people work together, it's so much better to get improvements as regards the pandemic impact, and all the contributions can converge towards a common objective. With the modification and sharing the powers between state and private powers and sectors, to know what resources we must use so that we can see with what we need to work with. This is not only a simple product provider, but someone who can provide a change, promoting their participation in communities. It's something not only to be taken into account a vision or a participatory governance. We must share this administration. These are the key tools in shared management. I also think that we must work together towards the future to reorient towards and trying to solve the real problems that people have. And this constitutes the possibility of identifying the problems and having social answers that are efficient. Institutions and the different sectors with the national plan. Besides, it is necessary to invest in social economy, having a national plan that is structured in the long term to create communities being able to produce and put at disposal of people what's necessary to reinforce the social economy in Italy and in Europe for the social innovation and the social inclusion.
Merci Claudia, merci pour ton intervention. Donc, des éléments d'intérêt, une croissance continuelle de l'économie sociale en Italie pendant les derniers ans et un apport important institutionnel du côté du gouvernement par une réforme qui a donné un cadre plus clair sur le point de vue de la législation et la nécessité, tu as parlé d'une alliance de ces deux sujets en termes de prospective future. Donc, ce sont des indications importantes sur la situation.
We have important indications about the situation in Italy. Let's move to the following speaker from Indonesia.
Let's talk from your point of view on this first point, the relationship between public authorities and third sector in your country. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatori. My presentation is not will reflected only the Indonesian case, but also the another country in Asia like the Philippines, Malaysia, and India, because I'm represent as well the board of ASEAN Solidarity Economic Council. So with the questions whether the social economy destined to grow or shrink, taken the case from Indonesia, we don't have really the exact data. How is the situations with the cooperative impacted during the COVID? But then because the national data has only compiled all the small micro enterprises together with the cooperative, And the data said that 44% of the small scale and micro enterprises, including the cooperative, are impacted. That means it's closed during the pandemic, but we don't know really how much the cooperative part of this that is impacted. So I think so it shows that actually that in Asia that doesn't really separate or identify the categorize of the social enterprise or cooperative, and then they put the data as integrated with the other type of the businesses. So this makes quite difficult, not easy to analyze, to observe how far the survival of the cooperative and social enterprise in the pandemic area. But I would like to say from my kids itself, because my foundations is running as well the cooperative that serving the poor women's on microfinance, but we still survive. But surely with the survive, that means tries to struggle to survive. Yeah, so that means if we see that if we need really surely the government roles try to give stimulant to the cooperative, the microfinance and social enterprise, because actually they are doing two options, two objective. That means profit oriented, but as well so with the social missions. This is harder rather than the common businesses. So that means there is potentially growing, I would say, the social economy in mostly in Asia. Why? Because it is we can see that during the pandemic that the role of the civil society is needed. And we can see the solidarity among the neighborhood is raised up, not only the grassroots level, but as well in the district, provincial, and national level. So it shows that the government as well need the role of the civil society, try to identify the priorities, and then reporting the impacted, and then promoting the hygienic sanitations, the better sanitations living. So it shows that the demand for solidarity actions is raised. But I would like as you know that indeed the SSA enterprises and organizations are using the social capital as well the financial capital as their sources. As we know that social capital has been resulted from the social cohesiveness produced by responsible governance, which put the participatory decision making, mutualism, and democracy in the process of decision making, as well the ethical values as the core principle in their management. So that I can say that the potential of growing the social solidarity economy enterprises during pandemic is potentially will growing, because they are not only depending on the financial capital, but they mostly based on the social capital to running their activity. But again, as my experience, it depends as well how the government incentive try to help the social enterprises and SSE organizations, because we don't know how long that the pandemic will going. So until now, it's already the data of National Data Indonesia already said that 40% of the cooperative and small micro enterprises are going down. So for the case of in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines, and many other countries in Asia, solidarity movement is raising up in the neighborhood level. The people are helping each other, providing food for the needy one. And this model has been captured by some local government, for instance, in the Bogor municipal government. So they try to build the community garden and link this with the local market and another sector of tourism. So this program really helped the social cohesiveness resulted by this program helped to create the jobs in the agribusinesses as well to the dynamic the local economy. Now it's already 200 urban farmers in the city has been growing and then activated the job opportunity for the people. And in the case of the India in ASEFA, this is the old as well, the old NGOs in India inspired by the Gandhi's movement. So it has a mission on the uplifting the lives of the weaker sections in the society and integrated them into the mainstream of the society. Now the ASEFA has successfully developed so many community enterprises in agriculture, livestock and other sectors. So it shows that while many businesses are closing down, but the ASEFA has successfully maintained the community enterprises in that area. So I think this is a good story that the SSE model is more resilient during the disaster. So from the case above, we can understood that actually the government cannot work alone to revive the economic post-pandemic. The pandemic coronavirus 19 has given us the lesson learned that actually the resilient community is very important for survive. The resilient community is not only the key to solve the pandemic, but also to resolve another disaster like the natural disaster, climate change, and another social development problems. And then for asking how is it about the public policies, what can the public policies support for local economies? So I think with the nature of the governance of many local government, we're mostly doing the approach of top-down in their planning, and then lack of transparency and insufficient strategy to reach the poor. So then I think this is in this part the SSE organizations and enterprises will play very important role with their social capital as an appropriate partner of the government to fill the gap to reach the poor. So therefore, the national policy is needed to provide the enabling framework for the SSE organizations and enterprises in kind of the registrations, incentive in tax, public procurement, and capacity building. The economic stimulant as well.
Can I ask you to go to the end because we are short in time. So yeah. if you could split your intervention and go ahead in the second time, in the second answer. Thank you.
Okay, and that's it. Thank you.
No, sorry for interrupting you. It was very interesting learning about so many different countries. Of course, Asia is a giant, so there are many differences. But to what you said about governments cannot work alone and need the support of civil society is quite important. And in the second question, I would like to develop with you a little bit more the kind of actions that civil society organizations and social economy organization can bring in order to activate this answer from the government. Thank you. We have now Roberto Ivan Escalante Semerena from Mexico. Roberto, are you in line? Can I give you the floor? I saw you before.
Por supuesto, ya estoy aquí. Ya estoy aquí.
Perfecto,
¿me escuchan?
Perfecto. Sí, perfecto. Gracias.
Estoy desde la Ciudad de México. Pido una disculpa por mi incorporación tardía a la sesión. Fue un asunto de cálculo, de mal cálculo por los distintos usos y horarios, pero bueno, aquí estoy. Bueno, en respuesta a la primera pregunta, yo creo que en América Latina y el Caribe, que es la región tal vez que conozco un poco más. Encontramos diferentes respuestas en la relación entre lo público y lo social. Durante la pandemia, los estados nacionales han tomado en sus manos las cuestiones principales, y yo creo que no había otra alternativa, dada la magnitud de los asuntos que había que atender, sanitarios, económicos, sociales, y entonces han tomado una preeminencia absoluta o muy grande sobre el sector social. Y han, en cierto sentido, abandonado por conciencia al sector social. Por ejemplo, en mi país, el presidente de la República no confía en la sociedad.
Does not trust in civil society organizations. And it also argues that the civil society and civil society organizations are a type of organizations that have been made up to make business, which might be even true in some cases, that the social sector isn't as social as we think sometimes. But it's a way of living for those involved. And at the same time, what has been even deepened in this sense with this type of organization is that civil society had to reorganize itself with very small resources just in order to survive. It's something that everybody knows, that economies fell steeply, and governments stopped having resources to support the different social sectors. So what happened is that something that was already happening before, which was the problems of the informal sector, of the social sector of economy, was the most important of all sectors, actually, to generate employment, to contribute to the GNP, but especially from the point of view of employment creation. The informal sector of economy, it's the one that has contributed more in this sense, the most actually. In countries like Mexico, Brazil, countries like Paraguay, the Caribbean, the support that governments gave social sectors during the pandemic has been actually quite poor. They are left to fight with their own means. I think effectively that the social and solidarity sector of the economy has a lot to contribute, and there are many successful experiences in Brazil, Costa Rica, Mexico, in Argentina, because social organizations actually provide a service to society, particularly in a region of the world that since the 50s in last century has been extremely unequal in economic terms and also social terms. So the social sector must exist and must work with us. I'm not certain if this can work every time, particularly because sometimes we have different politics orientations. There are many truly conservative centers that don't think that the solidarity and social economy is the one that can solve this, in spite of the fact that many of the speakers before me already gave great examples of how this can bring support to develop the economy. So there's kind of a contradiction between the preeminence of the public sector, the lack of belief in the activity of social economy, and the total abandonment. That's because social organizations really need public policies for financing, for regulation, to have different ways of exploiting and using their own autonomy that governments must promote and advocate for. But this is not working this way. Jair Bolsonaro, for example, doesn't believe at all about the social sector. For him, the problems is within individuals, and that's a totally different thing. The issue of poverty, of inequality, food security issues, food safety issues, are not problems for Roberto Escalante or for other representatives. Those are social problems that have to do with a social, economical, and political structure that sustains this inequality. And certainly, and I will use this to close my intervention in these first questions, we need to support the solidarity and social sector of economy, because it's not only a generous and social aspect, it's actually necessary for the conditions that most of the people in Latin America and the Caribbean are living in. It's not the same to speak about social economy in Europe as in Latin America and the Caribbean, or in Africa, or even in some countries in Asia. These are completely different places, and they require different policies and different social orientations from their own governments that, unfortunately, as we were saying today, we do not have in America Latina right now, in Latin America right now. So it's a difficult situation that won't be improved with the pandemic. On the contrary, the disaster left by the pandemic, not only in terms of death rates, there are hundreds and thousands of dead people, but also the social and economic impact that we experience. And there are no resources that many governments are able to provide to civil society. Thank you, Roberto. Your presentation has been very clear. The ideology and the perspective that you have and the scenario that you face in your continent. Of course, America is different from Europe. It's the reflection of a lack of trust in institutions. And we have civil society, which is also a stakeholder in public policy that needs its space. But it shouldn't be reduced as an stakeholder in dialogues and as an important actor in dialogue. This the way of organizing itself that society has does not have any relationship or any relation with sometimes how public policy is actually organized. And this is my experience and what I also see in Europe as the situation that I see in my country. We will continue now with Jurado Mancilla in Spain.
Sí, can you take the floor? Thank you.
Thank you for your invitation. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on which place you are on. I want to give you the greetings from the municipality that we are here in Spain. We wanted to see this aspect about if what I will try to do is to give you a more European perspective of these issues. I think what the previous speakers have shared was very, very interesting. I will start by asking if the public sector will still have that protagonist role that it used to have, and that also was the cause for many of the difficulties we already faced. So I understand that in Europe, the pandemic and the post-pandemic times will require us to have even more protagonism in this sense. The revolution, as we said, should be to make progress towards different economical organizations, thinking always about the long term, about collaboration and about improving the relationship between both parties. And we need here to have a symbiosis between both types of organizations, as social organizations are the ones that have their feet on the ground. And we can reach places that public administration almost never reaches. We also have a great resilience and adaptation capacity that public capacity never had. And in economic terms, we are rather low cost, right? Social organizations also, of course, depend on public policies. We need resources, we need infrastructure, we need financial resources to meet our goals in order to be coherent as well with public policy. We also need the necessary legal framework, and this is something that we need to make progress on, to also leverage on all these advantages. I think in the sense, if this is going to be strengthened or shrinked, of course it will depend, and we will see what happens with time. And I am not so certain if the cyclical process that we have faced will continue. Of course, we are in a moment of inflection. The model is actually, the current model is decentralizing itself, and of course, capitalism has proven to be changing a lot. So we need now a different model that orientates its economic, environmental, and social policies in a very different way, in a more inclusive way, with a fairer distribution of its resources, and also providing gender equality, which is not always achieved. So I insist on the fundamental role that social economy has in this sense. Everything that we face with another perspective is something that will be very hard to achieve. There are many other regional and territorial initiatives that can be very helpful to us. And we as social organizations, we can be very helpful in this sense and helping in orienting other efforts. I insist there are other international organizations, the European Parliament, the UN, that promote cooperatives. In Spain, we even have a law that promotes this kind of organization, and one of our leaders is actually the Minister of Economy, and she's also an expert in social economy. And there we can find some important arguments that help us really reach our goals. And for these, social organizations will always be necessary. I want to end my presentation with explaining what is the support that social economy needs from public policy. I understand that the protagonism of the public sector is important, but also for social economy, it's fundamental. Thinking in the long term, giving cohesion and coherence to this sector, thinking about the different specificities, and I also think that public administration must facilitate the legal aspects and frameworks needed to carry on these efforts. So even it will be a pleasure to stay here and continue answering your questions.
The Republic for support in the social economy. There are some social economies that are very structured that request these types of politics. So it is a constant dialogue. It's not natural. It's an effect of a type of action that moves energies. Let's now talk. Let's give the floor to Isabelle.
Bonjour tout le monde, merci de l'invitation. Alors, je partage totalement l'analyse qui a été faite précédemment par mes collègues sur le fait que l'économie sociale et solidaire est appelée à prendre une place encore plus importante et qu'elle porte en soi des valeurs et un modèle de développement qui est beaucoup plus pérenne, plus durable et plus pertinent pour l'avenir. Au Canada, au Québec, le rôle des organisations communautaires et des entreprises d'économie sociale est reconnu. Nous avons des politiques publiques qui accordent une importance très grande au filet de sécurité sociale et on en a bénéficié largement au cours de la dernière année et des derniers mois dans le contexte de crise dans laquelle on se trouve. Cependant, la valeur sociale,
the social value of action towards community corporations, renewed corporations, is different from the economic part, which is not very well recognized. It's only recognized using words by the government. I think that we all believe that we want the growth of the social economy. The public sector should adjust their politics and strategies to facilitate the growth and the multiplication of companies, and they must accept to change the paradigm and to direct the important zones that are going to be destined to the economy towards sectors that are not used to supporting the social economy or the collective economy. I am talking about this because at Quebec, we think it is natural. In many Occidental countries, the economy politics from our governments are oriented fundamentally to the growth of what they have called the motorized sectors, that is to say, exportation, because the governments considered that this was acquired as well as the robotics, artificial intelligence, and the growth was found in that sector. The rest of the remaining sectors were following this as well. Well, you can see very few companies that are community companies. We place importance to the exportation sectors because the 90% of many countries are companies that were obliged in the 30 years to follow other economic strategies. And they run the risk of being forgotten because of this economic politics. The region created as regards salaries, volume, and other effects generated enough services to people where there was a lot of demand to guarantee a very good quality of life. It is politic logistics. Companies from other sectors responding to other types of elements from society, they had to be sustained by state politic economy. It is necessary that we must comply with this
dans un principe de délocalisation des entreprises. Et là est arrivée cette fameuse pandémie mondiale. Alors, les secteurs de pointe ici,
this known pandemic affected many sectors that momentarily were affected in Canada, in Quebec, in these industries. They augmented their activities, they increased their activities in this type of activity. Whereas we were isolated inside our homes, watching Netflix, buying products in Amazon, and realizing that the happiness and life had nothing to do with this. And whereas this economy continued, some elderly people did not have access to what they needed. There were no more entertaining centers. The commercial centers were not able to sell their products and services. The social economy services were very bad. So while this economy continued, the neighborhoods were isolated, human relationships were almost lost, the problems and the social problems were exploding. And our governments, at this moment, we noticed that the GDP is increasing. We are in a 6 or 7% of unemployment in Quebec, and we are in the middle of a pandemic. If we wanted the social and local economy and the proximity economy occupy a place in the future, they have to find how to relaunch this so that societies can continue being dynamic, having social life. So governments have to change their paradigms. And I want that when we finish this pandemic, I hope we can get a balance of the priorities and the relaunching strategies from local and private sectors are aimed at supporting the companies, the social economy companies, the communities, the small business, so that they can provide employment to a lot of people here, and they can support as well exportation of the local production destined to shops that are nearby, because this can add value in the investment of engineers, for example, or sectors like microbiology. But we must also take into account nurses, agriculturists, all the social actors. We have a lot of experience in this topic. Then we can work together with the government in order to launch the economy. The administration in Quebec supported itself in the actors in order to provide answers to the needs. We are conscious about how the social economy has been affected. And I hope there is a new raising in awareness. And we hope that organizations are being taken care of in growth periods. This is more or less what I wanted to share with you without repeating what has been said before. This is our priority in Quebec. We must make conclusions and we must make choices during this pandemic and crisis. And we have to relaunch this social plan so that the social economy can be present to provide answers during these hard times. Thank you very much, Isabelle, for providing you our point of view from a country that was not really affected by the crisis like our country. But nonetheless, it means that the people can rebalance their priorities facing a situation that does not take into account the social aspect. Some other people say that this sector launches and is at under the same condition of other sectors. However, we can see that exportation is different. And exportation is really important for the development.
Mais enfin, on a terminé. Maintenant, les premiers tours. Now we have been a little bit long in time, so we need to be shorter with the next round. So I invite you to give maximum 3-4 minutes answers. The second round will be we discussed now the relationship with the public authorities and the role for public policies. Now the second question is focusing on what is needed by the SSE organization facing this new scenario in order to grow. Are the SSE organizations already equipped, or do they require an additional effort in terms of investment, culture, operational models, and so on? What are the strengths and the weaknesses that need to be addressed by the organization of the social economy? This is the second question. Please, I don't see any question in the chat except a question from Il Chong on Indonesia and Asian countries, and this is for Eri. Il Chong is asking about statistical data on SSE and profit organization in the COVID emergency. So if you can react to this during your intervention. But let's start now with again with Claudia. Claudia, the floor is yours. Please, 3-4 minutes. Thank you.
Merci.
Wait
L'urgence
a minute. Wait, sorry,
n'en
Claudia.
part
Sorry,
des besoins
Claudia.
urgents.
Claudia, I made a mistake. There is one more intervention. This Miguel Fabian Jarque. I am sorry, Miguel. The floor is yours. I just made a.
Oui.
Muchas gracias, Gianluca. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Gianluca. First of all, I want to thank and to let you tell you a little bit about my insights about the social economies. We make part. I live in San Juan. We are made. I am from a province, from San Juan. We suffer a very complicated problem in how to face the pandemic, not only as regards health, but also socio-economical sector, as well as logistics. From San Juan province, what we thought not only in the short, but also in the long and medium term, we asked all the sectors that may form part of the economy of the province of San Juan, and the idea was to do a treat in San Juan, which implies getting together more than 70 actors from all the sectors of the province, from the economical, social, industrial, and the sectors, and especially from the socio-economy sector, in order to debate and generate a political development to face in the best way possible the pandemics, and something most important, the post-pandemic. Working in that way, what we did was generate 16 proposals in which all the sectors and all the provinces in San Juan were able to give insights and feel identified in the way in which this new stage was going to be dealt with. In this way, we were able to consolidate all the social, to generate new tools, whether working in a coordinated way with the private sector. It allowed us to face in the best way what we name the post-pandemic. What did we do? We were able to incorporate to the social economy sectors that many a time was very complicated to make them visible. So in this way, we were able to generate links among the small and medium-sized companies, as well as the most relegated sectors and affected by the pandemic. We have developed several programs. For example, San Juan Works is the name of a program in which these economy sectors were informal. Well, we were able to make them start incorporated in the formality part and to provide services to the small and medium-sized companies. We were also able to add people who were left unemployed to start working in sectors where many a time were demanding more people and employing more people. What we did was to create an agreement in which what we did was to place value to the impact. That is to say, not only a company or a small-sized medium company. We did not think only about the economic part, but also the effects on the environment. So in August, we started with this project, and it was very important for San Juan because it generated that this business sector to start starting its own activities with a more holistic vision of an economy development in the province. What I mean by that, we were able to think about investment and an activity development or restarting an activity only for gaining money, but what we can do so that the social development of that activity is important and beneficial for the province. And taking into account the time that I allowed it, I think it's important also to add that the development of any politics, any post-pandemic politics, and if we want to improve and be better after this pandemic, well, we must take into account the public and private articulation in which the state participates in this program and meets all the sectors and listens and articulates politics so that the development can be achieved, and also taking into consideration the environment. In the province, we are trying to work, as I was telling you, in the short term, with this type of politics. In the medium term, thinking how we are going to foster this impact project. And then to think about San Juan in the next 15 or 10 years. So I think that the planification is a fundamental part of the development, because this is the best way of facing this post-pandemic part, but also to articulate the public and private sector, not forgetting about that. Thank you very much, Miguel. It was very clear. You have talked about all the what was more or less said previously. Let's go to the second block of questions.
The floor is yours.
Claudia.
So the answer on the reaction of organizations.
L'urgence, d'un part, à Société de Vestigio et inédite, de l'autre, à SHNP, et des problèmes sociaux présents dans notre société depuis des années. Elle n'a plus l'urgence sociale sans précédent depuis l'après-guerre. Inégalité économique, territoriale et de genre, pauvreté,
the economic inequality. And in Italy, how inequality is growing.
Ici que la conscience que les aujourd'hui, c'est la justice sociale, notre capacité en tant que pays à construire des façons équitables et universelles à cette opportunité. Et c'est là précisément le grand souci, car lorsqu'un système social devient unique et que la cohésion sociale s'affaiblit, les risques de conflits sociaux augmentent. Le tiers secteur a réagi de manière très créative. Il a modifié structurellement les formes traditionnelles de proximité. Il a introduit de fortes innovations dans le mode d'agir, de construire la solidarité. Et ce qui a été expérimenté au cours de ces mois de pandémie par le tiers secteur, agissant avec les collectivités locales, les régions, les pouvoirs publics, et avec le monde d'entreprises dans notre collectivité locale.
The companies in the north and the local communities, the regions are going to become public. They're going to transform in a new work model, the creation of a rate of alliances within institutions, public and private, in the community. We are looking for institutional solutions, collaborating with the sector, and the strategy in the social economy. And we are calculating that it's necessary to social protection in the network, to improve the social impact in the people of the community, facilitating the interconnection and to avoid many a time to see other ways of protections with new ways of working. That implies the new generations, but also working to associate the social promotion to help their interactions trust with the social, to create measures to support and the development oriented to the companies, the capacity to contribute for innovation, part of intervention to support the digital sector, and the investment to establish between the public institutions, the private institutions, and also the world in the company and the financing world, and to organize the existing world in the private world on the investments to the people that are vulnerable, considered like the investments of service in the organizations of residencies. It's important to give importance to projects to provide and to comply with the objectives.
Sociale comme réponse concrète en termes de politique active de travail pour un nombre croissant de personnes en situation de fragilité.
For a different number of people who are suffering and being in vulnerability. This provides the people that were not able to come back to the work after the pandemic. The social economy of that sector will show improvements in the times of resilience, not only for vulnerable people, but also for what is produced
Claudia.
in the traditional communities.
To ask you to be shorter, but we have interpreters that will have to leave at 45, so maximum 4 minutes. Eri, it's your turn, please.
Okay, thank you. At the first, I would like to answer the questions from the chat, as you mentioned, about the data of the social SSE organizations in Asia. Frankly, we don't have it at the first because the policy of in the countries in Asia is differently how they treated the social solidarity economy organizations. But to my observation, the most advanced one, the country with the policy framework in organizing and promoting the SSE organizations is the Korea. So they have already certificated, they give the certificated and accredited to the social enterprises there. So but I give you the case from Indonesia. We don't have any data on the SSE enterprises, but we cannot say as well that only the cooperative as an actor of the SSE. The actor of the SSE, not only cooperative, but there is as well the fair trade companies, and then the community-based organizations and others. So we don't have exactly the statistic data, but in general, the government Indonesia said that 40% of the micro enterprises and cooperative are impacted. That means closed during the pandemic. Now I would like to ask to raise the questions. The question two: how to develop the transformative potential of the SSE. These questions actually can go to the two: who will develop the potential of the SSE actors? At the first, because the government is the central role. Though actually the central role there, that at the first, the more practice one that I can suggest is the that can be easily adapted by local government is try to bring to strengthening the local economy by connecting the economic actors along the supply chains in the territorial level. So I give the case of the ASEFA in India and as well in Bogor municipal city in in Indonesia, how to bring, they connected the urban farming with the local market and ecotourism. So everything, the dynamic of the economic actors are activated in the local area that can be mostly bring the benefit to the local people, and then less money go or fly to another district or provinces. But another approach about how to develop the transformative potential of the SSC should be developed by the civil society itself. So therefore, the networking among the SSC actors is very important. So to this role, I give you example that the ASEAN Solidarity Economic Council in Asia and the RIPRES play this role in building the networking. So the networking is not aiming to broaden the cooperations, but as well to advocate the transformations of the SSE organizations. As we know that though with all the strengthening of the SSE organizations in their social capital, but they have as well the weakness, such as the capitalist mindset embedded in most members, because such as Indonesia, the no alternative in the university is very less lecture about the alternative economy. So the most economic model they introduced are this mainstream economy. That means the neoliberalism. So and
Eri,
the second,
1 minute left.
Okay, 1 minute left. Then I would like to say that we need in this case the collaborations with the government and the civil society. We cannot depend on the government because we know that the government are mostly influenced by the mainstream economy, but therefore the civil society should strengthen by themselves through the networking. So this is thank you very much for opportunity for me to sharing and then listening from learning from you all of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Eri. Roberto, 3 minutes, it's to you.
Muchas gracias. Seré muy breve. El principal enemigo de la economía
The main enemy of the social economy and the humanity, I think in general, is the market. And the market, at this moment, is playing an important role because it concentrates even more the resources in a few hands. The pandemic has highlighted something very important, the importance of the public sector, but the public was not enough. It was not getting enough support. Before the pandemic, we had a territorial division in all our countries that pointed to the impact of the market was stronger. We all know that the north of Italy is even more advanced than the south of Italy. And the same happens in all the countries. So what is going to happen now in the post-pandemic, and we have to define what post-pandemic is. I think that the virus is going to continue, but the most important, what is going to be even stronger, are the economic impacts. And these are going to be divided with territories, because the market today had made the rich people even richer and has equipped them with tools to be even more richer, to be richer, that they don't have, but that is not included that in other sectors. And I give you an example, digitalization. The life digitalization today is a fundamental element to do business, to communicate, to reach agreements, to many things. The social economy doesn't have these instruments, or they have very few tools, especially in Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa, and some part of Asia. In Europe, it could be different in Europe. So my impression is that the post-pandemic situation is going to diminish this, even in territorial level. The territories that were in more disadvantaged conditions, unfortunately. Thank you. Thank you very much, Roberto. Luis, your turn. You have 3 minutes. So briefly, there is a question that was being commented in the chat where we have to change the public collaboration to the public and social collaboration. Effectively, there is a problem or there is a risk, and it's that the companies that are in the stock market, they're always alert and able to collaborate and to do business as usual. So you have to be careful with that topic. As regards the question, the same question that was done in the panel, the super municipality is going to have a key role in everything that has to do with the administration of the public sector, how the social economy can cover certain necessities, how they can put at the disposal of the social economy in infrastructures that are used by local organisms. In Spain, we have some interesting examples on how the social economy companies have given answers during the pandemic. To give you 2 examples, in the north of Spain, as our co-worker said, Roberto, he said that the industry was working making masks because we didn't have factories that made masks. And was done very quickly, and that was very good. But we also saw some responses in the south of Spain, how collaborative places that are in the social sector, they were on the first line, they were very exposed, and they were prioritizing putting people in the center of this situation. I'm going to finish as regards what we have to do in the local sector. We have to think not only about the social as an alternative way. We have to give answers to the necessities that are going to happen in the future. I talk about social innovation, mobility, provide answers to the inhabitability, the proximity services, platforms, and a lot of etc. things. And as regards the questions whether we have to improve as an organization, of course we have to. We cannot generalize. We need to optimize our model. We need to be more flexible, more digital, more accessible to what we are. We cannot let our organization to be similar to the lack of operability that the public administrations normally are like. So we need structure changes, we need culture, we need to improve our network and to evaluate and monitor our activity. So we need to rethink not only what, but also how, and especially why we do the things that we do. It was very clear. Thank you very much. Isabelle, it's your turn. I give you the floor there.
Très rapidement, parce qu'au Québec aussi, les organismes communautaires, les entreprises d'économie sociale ont des problèmes.
In Quebec, the economies have problems as well.
Ont des problèmes liés au numérique.
They present digital problems. They don't have access to the same types of infrastructures or digital facilities as many companies or the government, and this imposes a problem to provide quality services, but also to arrive to a type of client that doesn't have access to this facility in the digital aspect because they have economic problems. So the government and the governments must act on this type of problem. Another problematic is wages that are not enough in the community sectors, in the small companies of the social economy. Currently, the state, through the health sector, was trying to impose some wage limits to these companies, and currently they need a lot of resources. These employees are not going to come back to the social sector. But apart from all these difficulties, I want to talk about the opportunities that are real and that are offered by the social economy sector. Recently, we have been working on relaunching the local work, and we had a lot of proposals to provide answers to the different types of necessities provided by the crisis. Resources from the social economy to sustain the clients that were more affected by the crisis in different ways. We were asked to use this type of economy to maintain people and to provide support to the elderly people, to host the vulnerability clients with mobility programs for health creation and construction, health, mental health as well, because they cannot have access to the public sector. And also in the agricultural sector, they favored the access to the enterprises and the social companies, adopting politics in the productions, and also to create an economy and circular type of economy where some services were at the disposal for the companies to be able to use them in their productions. They were also they suggested us to place the social economy to protect the natural medium, and they proposed the creation of a society and an acquisition fund having the main objective to buy companies that are closing and to transform them into cooperatives. So in this relaunching, we can help. Of course, there are some weaknesses and other problems in different layers of the problem. But this can be overcome, and we have interest in trying to take advantage of all the opportunities offered by the social economy. We only have to be willing to do it. So thank you very much. And to finish these rounds of business, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the experience that we have in the province of San Juan, especially from the investment agency that I am leading. We work with the social economy, trying to include some finances. We have developed some very innovative tools as regard for the province of San Juan. We developed something that allowed to have access to funding for small projects. We created a fiduciary that generates credit lines specifically to modernize and train all the micro companies that need this help. We have developed microcredit line that, of course, was adapted according to the requirements that were arising in these pandemics. We were able to reach the micro entrepreneurs as well as producers. And in the province of San Juan is mainly devoted to mining and agriculture. But the most important industry requires micro products, and for that reason, we have decided to give some credit lines so that they can overcome this pandemic in the best way possible. But we also work with other types of activities, for example, developing structural projects. These types of projects I can explain to you with a few words. The company, Node, gets trained with technical assistance. And not only the company, but also the whole supplier chain. So there are many actors at play in this small social economy. They were able to be trained and reach standards that were needed for very important companies. For this reason, more than 625 producers in the province of San Juan were able to be trained, and we were able to generate technological packets that allowed certain power, together with these lines of credits, to have access not only to improvements related to the productive activity, but also as regards energy production. And I think it's very important that the main focus has to be related towards the person and the holistic development of any person. So for me, that is fundamental, and this is the way from which the social economy works. So we have generated several tools, as I was telling you before, but also thinking in that social economy is a fundamental actor of the province in general. Recently, you were talking about cooperatives and other associations. We are working in generating the cooperative culture. I think that is where we should place focus on, and that is what we do in San Juan, to generate this culture using cooperatives that allow us to generate new paradigms in the development. In the province, we have supported, for example, some seed producers, generated cooperatives for small entrepreneurs that generated different types of seeds. And they were able to develop themselves, to have access to markets that in other ways it was not possible for them. And apart from that, the social economy could reach the family as a producer and developer of this type of economy. Thank you very much. We have to close. I am very sorry to stop you, but many thanks for what you have said.
There is no time left for conclusions. It's a pity, but 90 minutes are done. Just one comment. We understand once more that social and solidarity economy has an extraordinary adaptability. From all the things we heard, this approach to the economy is not bored with pre-packaged solutions, but reacts in relation to concrete and specific needs. This makes it quick in reactions and capable of continuous adaptations, even during COVID-19 emergency. We conclude here our webinar. I would like to thank all the panelists, the webinar attendees, the organizers of the World Forum on Local Economic Development. And I remember that you will find the recording of the session in the 3 languages on the forum website and on the social media. Thank you again, and sorry if we would not answer to all the questions, but you can contact the organizers for continuing the dialogue. Thank you. Thank you to you all.